at Variety, and I am very excited to bring out a very busy lady who has been all over the country today. So let's welcome Jessica Chastain.
Yeah!
I really want to start with you telling them where you've been, because it really is fascinating.
I woke up in New York. I did a show last night. I'm doing Doll's House on Broadway.
Yeah!
And I woke up this morning, did hair and makeup, and then I got on a plane and I went to Chicago and I had deep dish pizza and a hot dog. And then I Q&A, and then I went to San Francisco and had sourdough bread. And then I came here and I was like, well, I'll get the smoothie at Air One that everyone loves. And now here I am.
Just a normal Sunday, no big deal. All right, so I want to dive into this because the show is so incredible, and I kind of want to go back to the beginning of how you came about this and what you knew about the story before, and then when you started learning about it.
I didn't really know much about it before except the song Stand By Your Man. And it came to me, it was 2011, and I had a bunch of movies come out, and I was invited to go to the Golden Globes. It was the first time that I was there, and Josh Brolin approached me at the ceremony and said, you should play Tammy Wynette. And I was like, okay, because, you know, I wasn't used to having a movie star talk to me, so I'm very excited. Then we worked for about 10 years, got a script written, tried to get the movie made. It was very expensive to make a 2-hour film of this. And then in 2020, Abe Sylvia, who wrote the screenplay, said, well, what if we made it into a miniseries? He was in the Broadway production of Cats. He's an actor, singer, dancer.
Nice.
And he wanted to approach the miniseries we have 31 songs as like, really, you know, the musical numbers weren't just these like showstoppers, like musical, you know, events. It was scene work. So he wanted it to feel like the scene was progressing through the music and to do it in a miniseries.
What is it about Tammy that made you want to play her? What was it about that drew you in?
You know, I think there's a lot of things that are different about us. I mean, I have a lot of respect for her. One thing I would have loved to ask her is why she always needed a man around her. And not in a bad way. I love men. I always need one around me. And so I wanted to explore that. I wanted to figure out like what creates that in her. And then I also really loved the two different people she had to show. I mean, it's fascinating to me that this woman who's singing Stand By Your Man and, you know, all these songs about just wanting a good man to love her and like to be, you know, a good wife. She was married 5 times. You know, she had a very complicated life. And then someone like Loretta Lynn, who was with the same partner her whole life, was singing about birth control and, you know, don't come home drinking with don't come home drinking with lemon on your mind. So I love the kind of like the difference between the two people.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to talk about a man as well, because you and Michael Shannon have worked together before. You have excellent chemistry. How did you go about creating the trust that you must have created in order to convey that chemistry?
Well, we already had the trust. It's an interesting thing because you never really know if you're going to have chemistry, especially if you've been friends with someone for so long. And I've discovered that, you know, Mike and I did a film called Take Shelter together, which was like, it's one of my favorite things I've done, and he's so wonderful in it. And we get to see a side of him that we don't really see that often. I think because he's so physically intimidating and his presence so strong that he tends to play very intense, villainous type people. And he's not like that at all in real life. He's so fragile and shy. And so I just like the idea of getting to see him play that, you know, that vulnerability was exciting to me. And then also I knew because we were going to do all the singing, and especially we were going to do it live, I just needed someone who had a musical background he plays a ton of instruments. He has a band. I've seen him in concert, and I knew that in the time that we'd rehearse, I'd have a real partner and collaborator, and it just made me feel safe.
Well, let's talk a little about that music and that singing live, because I can't imagine that is an easy task. Was that daunting to you? Was that exciting to you? How did you feel at first, at the beginning, when you started going through the training?
Well, it kind of evolved. I honestly, I probably would have said no. If they had come to me and said, you're going to do 31 songs, beginning to end, and you're going to sing them live on set, I would have been like, I'm not the actress for this. Thank you, though. But I guess over the 10 years, there was a lot of I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was always preparing for it and researching it. And I worked with T-Bone for a little bit, then he hooked me up with Ron Browning, who's a coach in Nashville, and Ron moved to New York, and then Mike and I started going every single day, for months to prep and learn the Nashville sound. And I don't even think we really knew that that's what we were going to do. I think we kind of anticipated that we would lip sync, because that's what everyone does, right? You do the pre-records and you lip sync on set. Mike Shannon is such an authentic person. He can't he doesn't want to fake anything. He doesn't want to fake that. So he knows how to play the guitar and he wants to sing the songs. He doesn't want to move his mouth to a recording. And so he was really talking to us about we need to do this. And Abe also really believed in it. And Rachel Moore, our music producer, and then Ron Browning, our coach, wanted to do it. I was the one who was a little this is not what I signed up for. But it was scary. I'd come out onto to do a scene like Stand By Your Man with hundreds of people, and to record it, the microphone's live, but there's no sound. So I have an earwig with this music in my ear, so I can hear the music, but you guys can't. And then I come out and I'm like, sometimes it's hard to be a woman. But that's all you guys hear, And even when I'm belting, it's thank you. Wow. Thanks, guys. But it's a very scary thing. So it was a lot of liquid courage and friendship.
When did you start rehearsing for vocally?
Years before. I came onto this 10 years earlier, so I think it was maybe 6 years before we started shooting. T-Bone Burnett came to my house and sat in my living room with his guitar, and we started singing this. He's like, well, what should we do? I'm like, let's just sing Stand By Your Man, because I need to know if this is crazy. Let's just sing it. And then we did it once, and he goes, okay, it's fine, you can do it. Knowing that I'm never gonna sound like Tammy Wynette, because no one sounds like her. But the whole point is she's a storyteller, and she could really tell a story through a song. And being an actor, hopefully, I can tell a story. So
you killed it.
That's how it started. You guys are rowdy tonight. I'm
Well, talking a little bit about obviously singing and knowing that you're not going to sound exactly like her, but no one can. How difficult is it for you to step into a real person and play that without becoming a caricature of that, and without mirroring her, because you aren't her, but you also really portray it so well. So what was that like?
It's so interesting because there's two ways of working, and they are completely opposite, but they both work. And when you study, you learn that about do you start from the outside and then go in? Do you start from the inside and go out? And the two opposite experiences for me, and I think were both incredibly fulfilling and both incredibly, incredibly difficult for me, are both the Tammys. And Tammy Faye, for me, I started from the outside and went in, so, but the ideas of it, this is exactly how she held her hand in this scene. This is where she took a breath. I spent so long looking at every second of what she was saying, because we just lifted these conversations. So that was more of here's the outside and I'm gonna build from there. This was a completely different experience, because this was, we're gonna start on the inside, what's the story that's being told, and then come out. It wasn't as much about every mannerism is exactly because, for example, when Tammy sings, she does this with her jaw. She sticks it out, and I think it's to open her throat. When I did it, it didn't sound good. So the music person says they're weighing whether or not what is, is the quality of the voice or the physical way it looks, which one's better, and they decided to go with the voice. So it was the more inside out.
It's so interesting that it was almost the exact opposite.
It's crazy.
But both worked.
Yeah, both worked for me. I mean, being an actor, it's so fun to be an actor because you get to try things all different ways.
Was the singing the most difficult part?
Yes. But I would rather, I've said this before, I would rather, and I don't want to ever be naked, but I would rather do nudity than sing. The idea of singing Stand By Your Man for 10 hours, and when I finished, I literally said to the producer, I will never sing that song again.
Oh.
Salome? I did.
What's
Did you
the
have a question?
Oh, you're asking about nudity. Is that why you're asking about that? Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, but I would rather do nudity than sing, and I've done both. Did you put some courage?
We should have had some drinks backstage. Get the memo. I want to ask about working with Georgia Tammy's daughter, because I know obviously she was a part of this. What was that process like?
It was incredible. Yeah, it's based on Georgette's book. Georgette's the only daughter of George and Tammy. And so we had her there with us all the time. We had her siblings with us who also shared our, because we had so much time, we also read all the books. We met, hairdressers that toured with them, Peanut Montgomery, who Walt Goggins plays, Peanut's wife, Charlene. There were so many people around us that helped us, and Georgette introduced us to so many people. She was really very emotional on set. In our 6th episode, we sing Golden Ring, that we loosely base off of this. You can find it on YouTube. There's an incredible concert they have where they sing Golden Ring together at Wembley. And so we have a scene like that in episode 6, and Georgette's one of our backup singers.
So sweet. Was it nerve-wracking at all for you when you did first start working with her because of how close it was? Like, were you nervous about meeting her or talking to her, and then how did that kind of grow into a friendship?
I was because also she's a singer, and she's like 2 of the greatest singers' daughter, who's also a singer. So it felt very, very, very nerve-wracking. But she was incredibly emotional. I mean, the more you read about them, you kind of find out her parents, in some sense, were hijacked by other people. And she was able to connect with them. But I think also this was a way of connecting with them again after they're both gone. So she was very emotional during the experience.
Yeah. And you kind of touched on this earlier, but what did you learn from Tammy? What do you want to take from Tammy?
Ooh. It's interesting because a lot of people talk about her I spent a lot of time in Nashville, and when we bring up George Jones and Tammy Wynette, so many people go, oh, George Jones, voice of an angel, what an incredible singer he was, and he is. He's an incredible singer. But Tammy, in some sense, kind of gets a bad rap. I mean, she showed up in Nashville with 3 kids on her hip. She was a divorced woman in the 1960s, which Nashville right now is difficult for women. But imagine being a divorced woman, unwed mother, and then saying, I want to be a country singer, and then becoming the first lady of country music to sell 1 million albums. I mean, she was a force to be reckoned with. And there are some people who talk about her in a way that I don't appreciate, because they'll talk about how she was so ambitious. She was just so hungry for kind of acknowledgement. And I'm like, I don't care. Why is that a bad thing for a woman to be? She was amazing, and she deserved everything she got. And it's incredible what she accomplished. And so maybe that's what I learned from her, that it's okay to to say, I want to achieve this and this and this, and like push yourself, that we shouldn't hold ourselves back.
Woo!
My follow-up to that was, what do you hope others learn from her? But I feel like that is also the same. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, no one's holding us back. Come on.
Absolutely.
It's like that Patrick Swayze quote, no one puts baby in the corner.
And I'm pretty sure no one would doubt that ambitious is a positive thing. So, we know that the singing was the most challenging. What was the most fun?
Also the singing, surprisingly. I mean, singing with Mike Shannon was fun because when you harmonize with another person, I'd never really experienced that. I mean, I studied in college, we had voice classes and all of that stuff with singing, but I never really did like all these crazy warm-ups that Ron Browning had us do, and then when two voices blend together to become this unique voice, this unique sound, it's beautiful. And I think that was probably the most fun. I also really like in episode 6, I do Justified and Ancient, which is nutty. And that music video is pretty crazy, Moo Moo Land. And that was real fun.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to saying yes to a project, obviously this was in your hands for a long time. This was something you've been working on, but you've done so many different things in your career. What is it that makes you want to say yes to something at this point?
If it terrifies me. That's the thing. Because if something scares you, if it's like, ooh, I was really hard on myself about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I was like looking at the work I was doing, and I have a movie club with my friends, and we watch a lot of films, but mostly films that no one ever talks about, and from other countries. And I was so impressed with what the actors were doing, what the filmmakers were doing, and how shockingly brave everything was. It was really like, wow, I can't believe I just saw that. It was really incredible and raw, the performances and what was happening. And I was talking to my friends about it. I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. I need to like push myself back there. And lately, when I think about the work I've chosen, whether it be Tammy Faye or Scenes from a Marriage, which was so difficult emotionally to do, and this, all the singing, there are definitely things that push me way out of my comfort zone and scare me in a way that I'm like, okay, it's going to be emotionally difficult. I might embarrass myself. But there's something about if you're putting yourself in a situation where you're emotionally uncomfortable and you're probably going to be embarrassed, it means you've never done it before. If you're feeling like you walk onto a set and you're like, I know exactly what I'm doing, you might not be, charting new territory. So that's kind of what I'm searching for right now.
Absolutely. When it comes to when you guys wrapped, was it easy for you to step out of Tammy? Or was it a struggle for you at all?
Oh, I was so sad because we finished shooting in Nashville, and it was an accident. We didn't even plan this on purpose, but we were performing at the Ryman Auditorium, and which was a huge honor to get to do that, like hallowed ground. And I was singing Help Me Make It Through the Night, and it was the last performance in our series that Tammy gives on that on stage. And she's in a really difficult place, emotionally and physically. And it was the anniversary of her death. And it was we didn't even piece it together. And until like a couple, a little bit before we realized that it was gonna be on the same day. And it was my last time performing her, and I had so much difficulty getting through the song. And I had to stop and I had to explain what was going on to, all the background artists and say, you guys, today's the anniversary of her death. I'm sorry, I'm very emotional because I've, lived with her for so many years, and now in some sense I'm saying goodbye to her, and it's also a scene at the end of the series. So it was very hard to say goodbye. I really loved playing her.
It's amazing. I love that so much. Well, I guess, yeah, of course. I kind of wanted to wrap up with just asking you what scares you? You said, you've listed all these things that scared you about this. what scares you in general about going forward in your career and what's next and what's coming up down the line?
Well, Broadway, for sure. I mean, I started doing theater. That's where I completely started. That's where I thought I was going to be. I mean, my dream was to be at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in the Repertory Company. That's like what I always wanted. And so my life is so much bigger than what I had anticipated. The last time I did a play was 10 years ago. And it was at the same time Zero Dark 30 was coming out. And I was really just like, I was so nervous all the time and scared. And I felt like so much attention came at me so quickly, and I felt undeserved. It was like that first year, 2011, so much was written about me that felt like an exaggeration, you know, where people like to anoint a new actress or whatever. And I felt I had a lot of pressure and fear about that. And it was at that time was so difficult. I was like, I can't do theater anymore. I'm too scared to get out in front of an audience. It's emotionally draining to me, and to keep it up for 5 months, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And then Jamie Lloyd, my director, who's good friends with James McAvoy, and I was working with him, and he came to visit James, and he visited me on set, and then said, why aren't you doing theater? And I said, I'm scared. And he said, well, I'll take care of you, and I promise you'll have a collaborator and someone you can lean on. So I'm scared. We just started on Monday night with audiences. I take Rescue Remedy. Do you guys know what that is? It's like, to try to like calm myself down. But so I'm always questioning myself, what is gonna make me the most nervous, or because then if I like what makes me shake, because that'll mean I'm pushing myself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for
Emily,
joining us.
thank you. You guys are